Okay, we're going to get started here. We'll turn on some videos and all right. Thank you everyone for attending goVirtualOffice. This is we're sponsoring this NetSuite Best Practices in Uncertain Times webinar. We've done this a couple times already for some of our clients, and we thought we'd kind of share this with other people in the ecosystem that do have NetSuite. So thank you very much for your time and for attending. We do know that these are very tough times for everybody, very unusual. What we're all kind of going through, and we thought we'd kind of, there's lots of webinars out there, everything about, financially, how to, manage your business and do different tactics, kind of big picture stuff. And we thought we'd kind of bring that and relate that with NetSuite. So that's kind of what we've done with this particular webinar. We're going to, let me move the slide ahead here. So we're going to do some quick introductions. The team that's on the webinar, Stacy, Mark, and myself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some financial strategies in these uncertain times. Show some aspects, some tools in NetSuite, as well as come up some higher level execution, more macro, big picture company strategies, and again, show a little bit of how to, leverage some of that within NetSuite. And then we're going to have about, 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So again, thank you very much for your time. We definitely understand that these are weird and strange times, and, people are going through a lot of stuff. So again, we were just wanted to share some ideas with everybody. So let's get started. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Dirk Shimpa. I'm a partner here at goVirtualOffice and the founder. A little bit about my background. I am a CPA, not a practicing CPA by any means, but I've been implementing and working with NetSuite for almost 15 plus years. Prior to that, I worked with other accounting and ERP systems. I've also played roles as a controller and CFO within businesses, and in these times I'm also a business owner. So those are some of the I guess the background and experiences that I'm kind of bringing to this particular webinar. Mark.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I am the Professional Services Manager, Mark Miller, at goVirtualOffice. And so what I do is I support our business consultants and our application consultants. And I know those that are on the call aren't necessarily our clients, so I'll just talk a quick second. What we do is we have one business consultant, and we have 2 to 3 application consultants that are assigned to each of our clients. And so we provide them a lot of support, and my goal is to help mentor and provide support to our team members internally. Personally, just to give a little bit of background, I've been doing NetSuite implementations for about 8 years as well, whether it's enterprise-sized clients down to smaller businesses. So a lot of different experience, and now I'm providing support to our team members that are implementing.
Great, thanks, Mark. Stacy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Stacy Welford. I'm an application team lead here at goVirtual, and my background really got started in public accounting at Grant Thornton, where I really primarily worked on venture-based manufacturing companies, where I moved from Grant Thornton into being a controller of those kind of venture capital-based manufacturing companies that needed a lot of cash flow management and planning. And my last position as a controller was also in agriculture, which you guys can imagine that in the ag industry, there's a lot of seasonal cash flow need, as well as it's been some hard times in ag and the dairy state here. So they brought me on to kind of talk about overall financial strategy here with everyone today.
Thank you, Stacy. All right, so let's kind of move forward. Just a quick background on goVirtualOffice. We are a NetSuite solution provider. We've been a NetSuite partner since 2005, and that's all we do. We have a great team of some 40+ people, developers, senior business consultants, senior application consultants like Stacy, lots of projects, lots of experience. We've won all sorts of awards. So, we just, we live and breathe NetSuite and drink the blue Kool-Aid. So anyways, that's a little bit about us. So we're going to we'll let Stacy take this section. She's going to talk about the financial strategy, and then we'll actually show you some things within NetSuite as well. So go ahead, Stacy.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Dirk. So I guess going into overall financial strategies that affect your cash flow. Cash is king. Everyone knows that. No money to pay your bills or employees, you're not going to be in business very long. But what I really want to focus on today is how you can really follow best business practices throughout your whole organization to align everyone to be strengthening your cash position continuously. As cash management really doesn't start because of uncertain times, it really saves you in uncertain times. So we're going to start with going through the business process inflows that really affect your cash flow. So the inflows, can move a slide ahead, thanks. You really want to look into your policies, procedures, and practices that really affect your sales and profits. What can you do now? What changes can you make? Can you use your sales management to really change prices potentially? Maybe run fire sales by using your procurement department to run slow-moving inventory reports from NetSuite to determine what inventory is really dragging you down and eating up your cash on your balance sheet. Not only can you get rid of some inventory clogging up your warehouse, you can create cash now as well by running some fire sales and getting your procurement teams along with your sales teams. And those should be normal business flows and processes that you're always looking at. You could utilize your procurement managers and the NetSuite reports to look at profitability by items, and also clue that over to your sales management team on which items they should really be focusing on. Maybe using HR best practices there to change your commission plan to give extra commissions or a spiff commission on those high margin products to bring in more dollars to your bottom line right now. Your collections process. If you guys extend credit to your customer, what are your processes? Do you have processes? Do you get credit apps from your customers? Do you do bank references, industry credit references? Do you use NetSuite's credit limits? So if someone's going above a credit limit that you had set, any type of auto, email sent out to the credit approval managers to escalate customers' accounts and make sure sales go through, but they go through to the customers that you know are going to pay you. Also, with your credit and collections department, are they using AP aging reports? Are they seeing them daily? Are they getting ahead of the problem customers and making those calls? Do you know that a call was made? Is it tracked? Or do you have two people calling the same customer and making them mad over being 5 days late? So really understanding your collection best practices and processes and making sure they're aligned with getting cash in the door as quickly as possible. And also, short-term cash generation is really needed right now. So just take a look down your balance sheet. What do you have control of? What can you leverage? Again, I've talked a lot about inventory. For some companies, there's a lot of money stuck in inventory. Fixed assets. Do you have anything that's idle, not being used, that might create some value for someone else? You can sell it. Get your employees involved. There's so many avenues to sell things these days, even if it's not a lot of money, through eBay or something. You might be cleaning up your warehouses, your offices, while generating some cash now and creating a job for your employees as well. Do you have any investments, intangibles, anything you can sell there? What about debt? Think about taking on new debt. Do you have any debt against your accounts receivable or inventory or fixed assets? Is now the time to bring in some debt to keep you flowing? And also capital, joint ventures, partners, new investors. So those are just a couple ways to look down your balance sheet and really bring in cash now. So then also, what are the best business practices for cash outflows? You really want to could be in control of your cash outflows, who the money's going to and when it's going to them. Do you have vendor strategic management plans, or do you just let your employees pick vendors willy-nilly and pay them every other day of the week? Are you doing weekly check runs and approving them and really kind of looking at who's due when and what vendors really matter the most to you? Do you know what vendors matter the most to you? Some people have vendor lists of 2,000 plus vendors. How do you categorize those vendors? How do you get down to know which vendors make the biggest difference to you, and which vendors you can push, which vendors you have to pay on time, which vendors are going to shut down your business if you don't pay them on time? Also, do you always pay vendors earlier than their terms? Always stretching vendors consistently over time is really going to help you in uncertain times. If you're paying your vendors 5-10 days early and switch to paying them 5-10 days late, that might raise some red flags. And then also, don't feel afraid to reach out to your vendors. And everyone knows there's some unusual times going on, and communication goes a real long way with your vendors, to help you keep going forward and making sure that they're going to keep supplying you. Then also, always looking down your expenses. What are your biggest areas of expenses, and where can you make some cuts or changes to create more cash now? For a lot of companies, payroll is a big area. Can you get creative? Is there voluntary time off programs allowed at your company? Potentially across the board, wage reductions, hour reductions, potentially reducing retirement contributions or deferring the payment of those could generate more cash in your accounts now. One manager once told me that you never waste a crisis. So if there's anyone on your payroll that really needs to be cleaned up, it sounds bad and harsh, but now's the time to get rid of it. Get rid of those type of people and overhead during this time of crisis. Again, debt arrangements. Can you refinance, consolidate debt, reach out to your bankers and really see what they can do for you. So now that you kind of have good business processes geared to generating inflows and reducing and slowing down your outflows, you also want to really make sure your accounting processes are ensuring the accuracy of your financial statements in NetSuite. If your bank doesn't balance and is thousands of dollars off on any given day, that's going to be an issue for you. So make sure you have good month-end procedures on bank recs and making sure your balance sheet and financial statements are accurate in NetSuite. So with accurate financial information in NetSuite, you could go ahead and use the NetSuite tools that are out there to compare against an annual static budget that you might have loaded in there so you can see where you're doing. You could create new budgets and new forecasts as the year goes on and things have changed quite a bit. So being into creating rolling dynamic forecasts, especially for cash, a lot of people use a 13-week rolling cash flow. So they could really ensure that week to week their inflows and outflows are matching their plans. And if it's not, you can adjust on the fly right there. Having that 13-week kind of cash flow also helps your managers approve that check run potentially, or say they have to hold back some payments to vendors because they didn't get as much customer payments in that week. So really using your cash flow forecasting along with your best practices and how they play off of each other. So in NetSuite, to build your forecast, there's quite a few tools. For sales, your sales teams can use lots of different things, from the CRM tools to kind of look at their leads and what business might be coming in, to opportunity records where they could create probabilities based on their forecast, and then also the historical trends of their customers. And then really you could also break down your customers in so many different ways, so you could really know what are the most profitable, what are your key customers that you need to be focusing on. NetSuite has channels, product classes, really however granular you want to be in kind of analyzing your sales and your products. NetSuite has it for you. Procurement as well. All your purchasing tools are right there in NetSuite. Open purchase orders, kind of for your short-term cash outlay. You could use demand planning as well to try and do that just-in-time inventory and keep those inventory levels down. The higher your inventory level is just more cash sunk into inventory. Expenses, we kind of went through earlier, really know your key versus non-key expenses and also which ones are variable and fixed. Can you remove any of the fixed ones? Is it time to start maybe looking into closing up an office to reduce that maybe rent expense? Can you consolidate there? Anything you could do in expenses. So investing activities, capital expenditures and proceeds. A lot of you probably set your capital budgets at the beginning of the year. Those probably need to be reevaluated. Is really, now's the time to look at the return on investment those asset purchases are going to be affording you. And if you should be doing it now, delaying, or potentially even speeding up. And then also financing activities. Again, what can you do in the debt realm with your bankers and your investors? How can you bring in more money in that area? And how can you forecast it as well and include that? And the last thing to be sure to include in your forecast is working capital, which is really just the difference between your company's current assets and current liabilities over a given period of time. So kind of on this slide, we just put a lot of the relationships on how they kind of work on your cash balance that most people know. If your receivables are going up, it's a negative impact to your cash. Your customers are holding on to their cash and not giving it to you. And in your forecast, you're really gonna want to forecast that based on your business. Every industry is different, every business is different. You could use things like these ratios here, daily sales outstanding, look at historical trends and maybe how they're changing now with the changes to your business. We've talked a lot about inventory, so moving down, as accounts payable, really stretching those vendors to keep your accounts payable a little higher to keep cash in your bank. Is the way to go, and days payable outstanding is another good indicator of that. So those are kind of the financial statement elements and processes that are going to help you in your cash flow processes. So now we're going to take a look at NetSuite. Dirk will take over here and show you guys all the bells and whistles.
Great, thank you, Stacy. All right, let's jump into NetSuite a little bit here. So this is a demo account of NetSuite. It's actually a Suite Success edition. For those of you that have Suite Success, a lot of this would come canned. Also, most of these, almost any of these elements can also just be built in previous editions as well. We will be providing a guide sometime next week to everybody who attends the demo of how to do some of these things that I'm going to show you as well. And there'll be some checklist items that we'll also provide in this guide. But just to kind of jump into NetSuite a little bit, Stacy talked about, cash inflow, sales and profit. So again, there's all sorts of metrics and everything around, new customers, new leads, new prospects, where's our opportunities at? Are we doing quoting? All of those things to kind of just monitor, where that stuff is at. Stacy also talked about profitable customers. Very important in this time, right? If you have some really profitable customers, see if you can do more with them, right? Where are your sales? Are they trending up or down? Where's your pipeline at? So there's all sorts of metrics around, opportunities and pipeline and tracking and leads. And so, definitely this is the time to, see what's possible. How can we close more deals, bring more in? So that's a little bit around the sales and marketing. Stacy talked about AR and collections. Again, cash inflow. So again, there's all sorts of key dashboards and portlets that specifically talk about AR and collections. So here's an example, where's my AR, today versus previous. There's is my AR trending up or down? If it's going up, we're getting less cash, that's bad. If it's trending down, then that's, hopefully we have the revenue and the sales to also support that. But, and then there are views that come with some of the later editions. Again, these can be rebuilt in NetSuite in previous editions, but you can kind of see a cash, income by week by customer, so you can kind of get a sense of when key receivables are coming in. And we also have aging. That's pretty traditional. So those are some canned stuff that's out there for AR and receivables. Just to kind of also take it a step further, there's all sorts of metrics in NetSuite about average days to pay, average days overdue, average days open. So this is an example of a safe search that we built that you can quickly look at by overdue balance and see which are your really aged receivables. But you can also use a tool like this to maybe grade or categorize your customers by payer type. So this is a custom field we put on the customer record, and we basically have 3 simple categories: no pay, slow pay, or good payer. Now, how can this be used, right? So a couple things we can do. We could quickly look at who our no payers are, or our slow payers. And, maybe with our slow and no payers, AR and collections and accounting team, they can only do so much. So maybe what you have to do is, get the sales rep involved, have them make some phone calls. They're the ones who, probably own the relationships and may be able to help bring in some of those dollars. The other thing I would kind of point out is that, if we do have kind of this categorization of slow, no, or good payers, when we have a new sales order, or a new customer invoice, or we're going to go sell a customer a product or a service, so one of the things you can do, and I'll just bring in this customer, you can reference that field from the customer record and bring it right into the sales order. And when we do that, again, so somebody who's entering in, oh, this is a slow paying customer. So what do we need to do with the sales order? So again, you could put an approval piece in place for that. So this is an example of a sales order that's already saved. But in this example, we're going to see, okay, it is a slow payer, but that's fine. We'll have management approve it, or we'll put some sort of approval level, or we may ask for a deposit. Again, this is all natural functionality that you can kind of leverage in these times. So that's a little bit on the AR and collections piece. Then the cash outflows that Stacy was talking about. Again, very similar views around accounts payable and expenses. Where are our payables? Are they trending up or down? If they're trending up right now, it's probably not a bad thing. That means you're kind of utilizing a little more cash. Again, you can see where your AP aging is. And then that same view, what does my cash outlay look like by vendor by week? How does that look like it's going out? And again, these are canned reports and searches that can be rebuilt in any NetSuite account. So that's a little bit on the that part of the AP. Stacy also talked about, this is the time to really kind of look at your vendors. Do you have some expenses out there? Is there some spend that are really kind of nice to have? So this is a simple report or a view by vendor, by spend or build in descending order. So again, you can kind of have a view like this and make some decisions on which vendors you're going to kind of put on pause in these difficult times. Paying bills. So again, Stacy talked about categorizing your vendors, deciding who are your priority vendors. You have to keep them on time. You got to keep stuff going in. But you may have other vendors that, they're kind of a lower priority. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to stretch them out a little bit right now. So what you're seeing here is the bill payment screen. I'm sure you're very familiar with this screen. But what you can do, you can go to Customize. And then if you go to Additional Filters, We can turn on a filter for due date. And then we also added a custom field on the vendor record called payment priority. So we'll add those two here, and we'll go back to our bill payment screen. And I'm just going to grab my correct AP account and checking account. So a couple things here. Let me just kind of clear my filters. So here's all my AP bills that I need to pay. Well, you could, with this filter now, you could say, okay, who are my priority one vendors? It's going to just show only the bills for the priority ones. You can then get them paid. Who are my priority two? And then again, only show them and pay those, and so on and so forth. But then, you know, we're sitting here and we've got a bunch of vendors, you know, with payments due, and it's the 24th, and really, I'm only, you know, I'm going to kind of stretch out a few of my vendors. So I'm only going to pay, you know, my bills that are due through the 31st. And then the rest of them, we won't be paying. So you can put that filter in, and then, you know, it would only show you those bills that are due in that date range. So again, just some different filters and tips that, you know, use to help kind of manage your cash outflows. There is also in NetSuite under accounting preferences, so set up accounting preferences. There's all sorts of approvals, right? This is the time where you really need to watch cash and what's going out. So you can put approvals around purchase orders, around vendor bills, around vendor payments. And you could even get to the point to where, let me bring up an employee record. And just the other thing I'll call out is, you know, there is help for all of this in NetSuite. There's videos that are available. If you ever want help, you're more than welcome to reach out to our company, to GVO. But on the employee record, you know, you could get even to the extreme to where you just put $1. So anything, any POs, any vendor bills, you know, it's all going to go through approval. Again, just simple little tools that you can kind of leverage within NetSuite. All right, so that's kind of the cash inflow, the cash outflow. The next thing Stacy talked about is budgeting, right? NetSuite has the ability to have multiple budgets. You can have a baseline and a current forecast. So you may have started, you know, with a baseline, but you know, with everything that's going on, we are in a new world, a new standard. So, you know, it may be a good idea to do a reforecast and just to kind of see where things look like they're going to land this year, with all this unknown and uncertainty, and then measure yourself against both the baseline and a current forecast is always a good practice. And then Stacy also brought up working capital. So here, let me go to a different view here. So working capital is key. It's all about the cash inflow, cash outflow. So this is a scorecard, a key performance scorecard in NetSuite. It's pretty simple, and again, we'll provide a shortcut or a guide of how you can build this in your NetSuite account. But this basically shows, you know, where my bank balance is at, where my receivables, and AP balance, all of those things, and then you can kind of see where your capital's at. You can drill into this, but you know, ideally you want this to trend up. The other that comes canned in NetSuite is financial ratios, and current ratio, receivables, day sales outstanding, you know, inventory turnover, those all tie to cash. So again, there's standards by each industry that you should measure yourself against, but then you should also measure yourself, you know, are you trending up or down where you need to be on these ratios? And then there is a cash projection that can be built, and this does come with the Suite Success Editions. The nice thing about this is this actually, you know, you can see the weeks going out, but you can look at the cash received that's planned to come in, the cash that's planned to go out, and you can see where you may run short looking out into the future. So some nice tools around working capital. So I think that's kind of where we're at. The only last thing I'll call out would be the balance sheet. The balance sheet is crucial. Like, this is the time to get your balance sheet, to make sure every account is tied out and correct. If your balance sheet is not right, then your income statement's not right, your cash forecast isn't right. I mean, everything hinges around that balance sheet. And then, like Stacy says, go through it. Maybe there's some fixed assets you can dispose of, get rid of some inventory. There's all sorts of things around cash that you can do around the balance sheet. So that kind of is where we're at least on the financial part of the presentation. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and Mark is going to go through the execution strategy. Mark.
All right, thanks, Dirk, and thank you guys again for taking some time out of your day to join us. So I'm going to go through some execution strategy. It's building off of what Stacy and Dirk have talked about, but a little bit more high level when it comes to your business. And everyone that's on the call has a little bit of a different background, right? Different industry that they may be in, different business model. And so what I'll do is, when I go through this, I'm going to point out some of the takeaways that, as you're listening, pull those out and look at applying them to your business, right? Because there are some things you may that may be thought-provoking for you to think about how you're looking at your business in a different perspective. So again, I'll point out some key takeaways, and then as I'm going through this, there is a comment function in the GoToMeeting, so feel free to use that, enter your comments as I go through this, and I'll either address them as I'm going, or we'll talk about them in the Q&A. So I'm going to start with some goals, and I'm also going to then talk about how do we take those goals and move them into a strategy going forward. And at the end, I'm going to cover a couple topics that we asked our consultants to give some ideas as to what are some things that other businesses can do in NetSuite to help improve their scenario, right? We're all in uncertain times, and as I go through these goals, a lot of this is coming from us as goVirtualOffice, right? We're in the same situation. We're trying to do our best to kind of navigate these uncertain times. So a lot of this comes from what we're applying to as well for our team. So that being said, we've got 4 goals up here on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the one on the top left. It's maintain and grow your internal culture, which, right, kind of seems obvious, but it's about being more proactive versus reactive. Whether you're a leader in your organization or a leader of a team or just even a team member, it's about communicating very transparently and frequently, right? We want to maintain that communication level. And we're worried, right? And our team is. So how do we address those concerns on a day-to-day basis? And as things are week over week, how are we staying on top of them? How do we have an expected communication line for our team? And an anecdote that I have, it's kind of a common one out there, you may have heard it, but I like its perspective, is another company was out there and they were running into a similar issue, not a pandemic, but a tough business problem. And so they gathered everyone into a conference room, and they wanted to talk as a team to start trying to solve the issue. What ended up happening is that a lot of the team members were asking some of the wrong questions, right? They were looking at, how could this have happened? Who caused this? Why did you do this? Why, and they were talking more at the people in the organization. And one of the leaders stood up and, just walked over to a printer that was in the room, grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down what the main issue was on that piece of paper and put it on a table in front of everyone. Getting everyone's attention, then said, everyone, this is our problem right here in front of us on this piece of paper, right? Holding up that piece of paper, said, here's the problem that we are trying to solve. And it's not about the individuals. What we're trying to do as a team is solve this issue. And what what the leader of the organization did there is objectified the problem to be outside of the people, but trying to rally the team to be able to figure out a creative solution or practical solution to the problem. And I like that perspective because it takes it away, again, away from the people. And you probably see that in your day-to-day work as well. There's a lot of looking at the team when really in uncertain times like this, we have got to figure out a plan to work together. So if we, in the next one over on the top right, if we look at that, you know, it's about exiting the pandemic over your competition and starting recovery now. So as a goal, right, we've heard a lot in the media that there's, you know, what's going to be the new normal, right? And how do we anticipate that? Well, whether it's in our personal lives or in business, we know we're always thrown something uncertain, right? We can't necessarily predict what's going to happen. And so it's a powerful thing to realize that we are in a situation that is the new normal. So how do we normalize that to start making smart decisions to figure out our strategic objectives, right? How do we start that recovery now and don't postpone it any further? So again, looking at the situation now and moving forward. The one on the bottom left there is a continuation. So understanding the identity of the post-pandemic business operations. What this is about is understanding your vision, right? We can't get to somewhere as a business without trying to visualize what it looks like, right? And being able to plan and execute towards that vision. So it's very important and critical that we sit down and understand what our strategies are, what is that vision, and then share it with our team. I'll talk more about that in a little bit here too. And then on the bottom right, it's forecasting your pain points and delivering strategic solutions. So trying to look ahead and understanding your pain points that are coming down the line because of the cause of this pandemic that we're in this uncertain situation. So taking those goals, those 4 goals, and how do we look at them at a high level, and how do we strategize and move and have a path forward? And so this section I'm going to talk about, again, it's high level. So pick out the things that apply to your industry. But I'm going to start from the left and move over to the right. So the first one here is taking stock, right? With an uncontrollable force in the mix, we've got to figure out what can we control in our business. So we look at our clients and contacts. We look at our marketable avenues. Are we doing everything we can from a marketing standpoint to get outreach out there and get in touch with potential leads and prospects? A big one that I'll call out, I mentioned I was gonna talk about some big takeaways. Customer service. Are we focusing, what can we control from our customer experience? This has been something there's been a lot of chatter around customer experience. And so it's important, right, that we sit down and we evaluate, how are we engaging with our customers? Is it a good experience? Is there anything we can incrementally improve? And then revenue streams and revenue channels. So revenue streams is about what are our product offerings. We may double down on things that are products that are doing really well, and we may see some products that are trending down. So how do we combat that unknown with creativity, right? So if we can't control it, how do we use creativity? Maybe there's a new way of packaging our offerings or our products, for example. And then revenue channels, are we making it easy to bring in money? Are we out on e-commerce? Are we out there having an area where our customers can log in through a portal? Are we making it easy for our clients? So as we take stock of what we can control, then going forward and looking at how do we analyze it, asking questions like, who is growing out of our clients? Are those essential businesses ones we can focus on? How to grab new opportunities to market. From a customer service standpoint, who needs help, right? If we're helping them through the thick of it now, when they get out of it, they're gonna see a lot of that value in that relationship. Where to focus on our revenue streams, and then decision triggers. When it comes to decision triggers, this is an important one again, and this is all about, when you're working with your team or you're working with communicating externally, making sure that you don't, when you put things off, you say, hey, we're going to handle that later. Make sure you know what the trigger is for you to bring that conversation back up. We don't want things to be left in the wind, especially when we're in this world of week by week. And then moving over to the right further plan. How do we prioritize our stairway? You know, coming from 2019, we had definitely a different strategy than we did when we started to get into 2020 and a couple months in. So we may have had a list of 100 things. How do we pare it down to the 3 things that we really want to focus on? Overcoming pain points. Again, trying to forecast those pain points out. What are we going to potentially run into? How do we mitigate that risk? And then another big one that I want to call out is internal cadence, right? So this is something that I'm doing with my team. And, you know, we've come up with an understanding of how we want to move forward. And what I'm doing is I'm presenting daily and weekly questions. So I've come up with a list of things to ask yourself on a daily basis for different teams, right? They have different questions, but daily and weekly, and that helps allow them to understand and work towards the strategic objective. Because business as usual in 2019 is totally different than business as of right now. So I wanted to make sure I was communicating what our objectives are and kind of those questions, those key questions to answer for them so that they can focus on our priorities. And then, of course, as those questions are out there, how do we track them, right? How do we track the team's activity when it comes to a sales team being able to view new leads, see the calls that are going out, a lot of the activity? We need to be able to track progress. And then the last thing is flexible solutions under planning. And this is about understanding that solutions may not get to 100%, and that we need to, there are things that we can do right now to help our team, right? Waiting until 100% is difficult with uncertain times, but how can we potentially provide our team a partial solution or part of it to help them move forward now? And then, so as we take stock of what we can't control, right? And we analyze it, we understand it, and then we start to develop that plan of how we move forward, we're going to be able to execute. Your team is going to be able to execute towards your goals, and you're going to be able to gauge results, convert new customers, and grow your existing. So we'll move on to the NetSuite Brainstorm is what we called it. So we spoke with our consultants, and we came up with a couple of ideas. So we've got 8 areas to clean up in your NetSuite account. And so the first one there is balance sheet. Dirk brought that up and spoke about that a little bit. Of course, looking at your financials is important. A couple others outside of financials well, the first one is data in general, right? We hear it often with clients. Our customer data is all messed up, right? We are unable to, we're trying to find a customer. Our sales team is looking up a customer and they don't see 1 record, they see 5. Now is a really great time to use things like duplicate detection to clean up your client and vendor list. And if you have someone administrative on your team that can work through that, or an analyst of sorts, it's a great time to utilize their abilities. And then, going further down the list is streamline data entry forms. And so this one is actually, it's a small thing, but it can make a big difference, right? So streamlining your data entry, I'll use the sales team as an example. As they're entering opportunities, making sure that the fields are sequential to how they enter the information, making it as simple as possible. Again, they're small things, but the user experience makes things a lot more efficient. A couple other areas to clean up: saved searches. We've seen clients with thousands out there and maybe only 15% that are used day in, day out. Clean those. It may be a good time to clean those up. Saved CSV imports, if they're not being used, they can be cleaned up. The second last one is another big one that I would call out that I personally like, and it applies to other scenarios, is external facing forms, right? So things you're sending out, if you're sending out an invoice or you're sending out a bill, right? Being able to have a nice customer interfacing form. And the key to it is, if you're improving that during this time of uncertainty, it shows strength. And it's a small thing, but it applies to other areas of your business that you might be able to think of that really could apply to you. Like, what are those incremental customer or vendor experience things that you can improve to show that strength, right? Because I can bet a lot of your competition, maybe not thinking that through. And then the last one, script audits and updates, being able to look at performance within your environment, right? What are some of the things that could be made more efficient? And then, so I'm going to go over the last piece here on the slide, and then I'll hand it over to Dirk to go back into NetSuite. We've got the 4 functions on analytics and process. So these 4 here are, the first 2 I'd say are my favorite: dashboards to drive process. One of the things we often see is clients not using their dashboards, and a simple thing like reminders. And so their team is having to log into NetSuite and sit there and think about, okay, what are the actions I need to take to be successful in my job? And with reminders and small things like that on your dashboard, they know exactly what to do right away. They don't have to think about it too much. It takes away minutes from their day of trying to figure out what they need to do. And then the second one, dashboards to gauge success. We talked about tracking activity. It's important to utilize KPIs to be able to have good visibility. And then there's the last 2, utilize workbook functionality. NetSuite's moving in that direction. It's an important area to be able to search, and you can set up data sets, you can set up different workbooks. It's a really powerful tool to dive into, and you can display some of the information on your dashboards for your team. And then lastly is the application performance monitor. That is aligns with script audits and updates. So that's something you can bring into your NetSuite account that evaluates the performance in your environment. All right, so I'm going to hand it back to Dirk to talk more about NetSuite and show the application.
Great, thanks, Mark. All right, so we just have a couple more things we'll kind of show you here in NetSuite, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So let's get back to our NetSuite account. So we kind of talked about, working capital, balance sheet, categorizing your customers. Again, this is the time to, have you can create custom fields. Maybe you have column, types of businesses or market areas that you have, and then you can run reports based upon those customer categories. You can also categorize your items. Stacy even talked about like product classes and that kind of stuff. And then once you have those categorizations, then you can run customer profitability. So what category or type of customer is more profitable? Which ones should we kind of be focusing in on in these kind of difficult times? Which items, Mark even talked about, like which items should we be, so there's item profitability reports. And again, so you can think about utilizing some of these reports and making some business decisions right now based upon those customer types, those product types, so on and so forth. Inventory turnover, right? So there's receivables, there's inventory turnover. Stacy called out, is there some slow moving inventory? Let's look at that slow moving inventory and maybe have a fire sale or do what we can to get some cash. So always kind of keep an eye on your inventory. So that's kind of like as far as, from a decision making as far as our businesses and our items. This is also the time where we're all remote, right? I'm home, everyone's working from home. People aren't really going to retail stores or to a physical location. So, most people may be aware, but NetSuite does have its own shopping cart. So you can get, it is an additional module, but you can turn that on. It's just an extension of your item master. It's an extension of your customer master. So you can within a few weeks, you can quickly set up an online web store and start taking orders. As part of that, or even you don't need that, but there's also a My Account. And a My Account is, again, you want to try to make things easy for your customer to work with you. So again, some aspects of the My Account, they could look at the purchase history. Maybe they want to reorder an item. Maybe they want to quote. Again, make it easy for them to buy from you. Wish list functionality, right? All of that stuff you have on Amazon and other, to other places you use for your personal, why not make that available for your customers? Billing. again, the ability for them to look at their account balances, invoices, or even, make a payment via a credit card. So you can set up NetSuite to accept payments card right here. Again, get cash sooner. And then cases, Mark talked about, this is the time where we're really, let's set up support cases. If a customer's having a problem or has a question, make it easy for them to contact you. So again, these are all, natural things that come with NetSuite, and this is the time to maybe think about utilizing some of that. All right, so that's pretty much it from a NetSuite standpoint. This is our last slide. So these are just some high-level takeaways. Mark talked about culture and all of those things. So communicate early and often with your team, your customers. Stacy even called out your vendors. Communicate, have conversations. So definitely be engaged with everybody in your ecosystem. List what you can control. Measure it, and then move forward. So again, there's a lot of things in this world that we can't control, but what we can control, let's lean in and do what we can with it. Mark talked about triggers and decision making. So again, look at what those triggers are. Really think about a good, strong decision and come up with a scenario and a plan. I'm really big on this is the time to be creative. I think it's the creative that will, survive, excel in these times. So, sit back every once in a while and try to be creative. Is there some new market, some different type of customer, something unique that you could be doing today that you never really thought about? And this is the time. Be calm, right? This is not easy. We're all in a new world, working from home, not being able to interact with people like we have in the past. So be calm. And then all of this you can apply to your personal finances, right? More interest rates are really cheap on your mortgage. Maybe talk to, if you're renting or leasing, maybe you can kind of, delay some of those mortgage payments or rent payments. Look at your personal spend. Are there some nice to have that you can cut out? So again, all of this stuff also applies to your personal side. So that's for the most part it for the presentation. We are on our social sites. We are kind of highlighting some of our customers, and we more than willing and would love to kind of highlight you and in our open for business links. So again, let us know, and if there's anything you want help with or you have any questions, we're here. So we'd love to talk with you. So with that, I'll invite Mark and Stacy back up. And again, Mark called out, you can put a question in on the chat, or you can unmute your mic and ask us any questions. We'd love to answer. Pretty quiet group out there.
We know that, yeah, and we know that there's a lot. So as you think through things that you heard about in this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help and talk things through, and we're open to talking about experiences that maybe you're going through or ones that we have too, and share thoughts.
Great. So I guess if there's no more questions, we will conclude the webinar. Again, thank you guys very much for your time, and just stay positive, and we'll all get through this. Thank you.
Yep, take care.